I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting to order. It's 5:09. Roll call, Tom Barney
Here.
and Eric Brown
Here.
and Michael Loth. I am here. Okay. Item 3, agenda revisions and approval.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Tom Barney, second by Eric Brown. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Item 4, approve minutes, approval of the January 22nd, 2024 meeting minutes.
Move approval of Finance Committee meeting minutes from January 22nd, 2024.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Tom Barney, second by Eric Brown. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Item 5, consent review and discuss January, February vouchers. I know there were a couple questions on those.
Oops, excuse me.
Brittany.
I received a few questions. Some of them were repetitive, so I'm not gonna answer them twice, but one of them was regarding the emergency go bags. And Dr. Reuter can chime in on some of the background, but I can go through the process that the business office went through. We, as the business office, purchased items that were going to go into go bags. Go bags would be emergency bags if there was an emergency in the school and they would have to evacuate, or
Fire drill.
they would grab these bags, and inside the bags are, I believe, the student list, flashlights, Band-Aids, hand sanitizers, Kleenex, gloves in case there's an emergency when they're away from their classroom. We did, I believe we had the bags because they were donated to.
From SUSO, Speak Up, Speak Out.
So they're drawstring bags that hang by the door of each one of the classrooms. 344 of them we now have in every single one of our classrooms in the school district.
It's part of the recommendations in our ALICE certification as well. That is part of our mandatory topic training that we did not have in place, so we implemented this year through the safety committee.
Okay. Very good.
The next question I received was regarding Turnitin LLC Comprehensive Protection. It is a program that we purchased earlier in the school year, so this was an addition to that program. I asked Mr. Miziak earlier today for a little background regarding this program. The students at the high school mostly, it can be used at any level, but I believe mostly used at the high school. In social studies and English, the students turn their papers in within this platform, and then it will detect plagiarism, student collusion, any AI formatting. So it will detect any of that. So the addition $925.45 was for the AI detection portion, even though we had the other portion earlier in the year.
It's a common program used at the university level to determine plagiarism percentage of paper and used in high schools.
Okay, very good. I would say I kind of knew what it was for, but I just wanted to see who was using it, how it was being used, and so on. It probably could be used in more classes than social studies and English.
Predominantly classes where written papers, essays are submitted
Right.
with citation.
It's interesting that we need such software in schools these days, but I get it. Very good.
The next question I received was regarding the purchase of what was written on the voucher smart boards. These are interactive devices. We have interactive devices in our schools. We did have a walkthrough of our buildings at the end of summer, I believe, to create a document stating all of the devices we have. I don't know if we had that in the past, and if we did, I don't believe it was updated. So we did have a walkthrough done of all our devices, so we could create a plan of replacement instead of just having to buy a lump sum of them, every so often. We are going to have a replacement cycle. These, I believe my list says that we have 18 that are going to be needing to be replaced. They are not smart boards, they are interactive devices, and we work with curriculum, the IT department worked with curriculum to make sure the devices that are being installed in certain classrooms are ideal for that grade level. So not all grade levels will have the interactive TVs, or they will have different aspects of the type of TVs there are to work with whatever grade level. So there's a plan to replace them and to replace them with appropriate devices.
So, widescreen TVs that are interactive, I believe, is what's going in. And smart,
Like
smart.
that you can touch.
Smart boards are actually being removed. So I think I've asked this question before because smart boards, you know, comes up and it's like, we're not buying smart boards anymore, are we? I mean, they were a big deal in 2012, 2013, but they're
I would
kind
say
of-
the new term is interactive displays,
Yeah.
or
Displays.
IADs.
But a smart board was a completely different
Yeah.
device.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
And that company actually is no longer in business, so,
yeah, it's
because
the-
that is
these caught
taken
up
over.
to
Correct.
what they were doing at the time.
correct.
Okay. All right, very good.
And then the final question I received was regarding the sinkhole at Kennedy Middle School, in which I believe we addressed at Buildings and Grounds, but I'd be happy to have Mr. Lord go through the detail of it. But the sinkhole has been filled and hopefully remains filled. Correct?
And no one missing.
And no one missing.
That we're aware of.
Hey, in the building committee, I heard knee deep in one spot. What was the diameter of it?
Roughly 23 and a quarter inches.
So
depending on
not-
the
not
chip-off was.
Not
It
real.
wasn't, yeah, I mean, it was dangerous enough if you're going for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was one of those that, you know, I just didn't want something bigger to create itself, obviously, after just throwing some more stone in there.
Okay. Is that it, Brittany?
Yes.
Okay. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent to pay vouchers as presented and reviewed.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Tom?
Yeah, I'll be abstaining from voting because my name appears on the report as a expense reimbursement.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries, and
And I
Tom
abstain.
Barney abstains. Thank you. Okay, item 6, reports and updates. Village of Germantown, TID review, Steve Krecklau, welcome.
Hi. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, hey, if you could, when you go through these, TID 6, 7, and 8, if you could give us the name of it, where it is.
Sure.
Because even the numbers don't mean anything to me right now either.
Sure.
I kinda know where they are, but,
Yep.
certainly the folks watching, don't know.
Sure, be happy to do that. Thank you. And I'll walk through a brief slide presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions either as we go along or at the end if you have any questions.
What time?
So let me start out by saying that this is a presentation that was given to the Joint Review Board as well as the General Government and Finance Committee of the Village Board, and it's based on the annual reports that were prepared for the tax increment districts in the Village of Germantown and submitted to the Department of Revenue at the state of Wisconsin. So maybe move on to the next slide and start with tax increment District 6. This is the business park off of Appleton Avenue, the Willow Creek Business Park. And it was it's the oldest of the active tax increment districts that we have in the village. It was created in 2014. Based on the state statutes related to tax increment districts, the last date that the village could spend any money in this district would be 2029. However, I'll also add that I think that's, there are no further expenditures that are planned in this area. The last space was occupied earlier in 2023, and construction is being completed there. So this business park is at this point fully built out, and no additional expenditures are anticipated. The base value for this area when it was created, and that's used for the calculations of how much money from the property tax collections go to the tax increment districts. The base value is $2,796,400. So the property taxes that are paid on that amount continue to be allocated out among the taxing jurisdictions as they were prior to 2014. The incremental value at the end of 2022 was about $41.6 million. So the difference in the property tax collections between the $2,796,000 and the $41.6 million is what the tax increment district collects and uses to pay for debt service for the infrastructure improvements that were made. So the annual revenue that's generated off of that differential is about $850,000 a year at this point. And based on that revenue stream, the estimated closure for tax increment district is 2032, and that's a couple of years earlier than the mandatory closure under state statute of 2034. So tax increment district 6 did get off to a rough start back in 14 and 15, but it, as I mentioned, it is now fully developed and doing pretty well. So then I'll move on to tax increment district 7. Tax increment district 7 was initially created around the J.W. Speaker property and an expansion that they planned in 2017. If you've been out there in the last few years, you've seen that they have built a second manufacturing facility that on their grounds, and they also expanded the size of their grounds significantly. The base value when it was created in 2017 was $9,642,000. That's a little bit higher because it included their original manufacturing facility that's out on that site. As you're also maybe aware, J.W. Speaker has not and is not likely to go through with the second phase of their original plans. They had also planned a fairly large office facility for additional engineering staff. And in our conversations that we've had over the past few years, it does not appear that they'll be going forward with that, although they are looking at and planning some additional expansion of their plant facilities that they have constructed. So we are expecting some additional increment from the J.W. Speaker site. Now, Tax Increment District 7 was amended in 2021 to include some parcels along the railroad tracks to the west of the J.W. Speaker properties, and then going north up to Holy Hill Road. So if you picture yourself driving down Holy Hill Road towards the highway, everything to the south of Holy Hill Road, to your left side, is in Tax Increment District 7. Everything to the north, or on your right side, is in Tax Increment District 8. So you'll also have noticed in TID 7 that there has been, there are 3 large buildings that have gone up on the south side of Holy Hill Road as part of Cornerstone Development Company. And the incremental value from both the J.W. Speaker building and the Cornerstone development at the end of 2022 was $23.7 million. Now that doesn't include, that only includes about half of the of the second building that was going up, and it does not include the third building. So now that those two buildings are completed, the annual incremental property taxes for tax increment District 7 are about $950,000 per year, so about close to $1 million per year in revenue, based on that differential between the original 9.6 million and the 23.7 million. The estimated closure date in that area, if there are no additional expenses, is 2033. So that's well in advance of the statutory mandatory closure date of 2039. So again, there was, kind of a curveball that came to the village with the change of the JW Speaker plans not to go forward with their second phase. But with the amendment and the addition of the Cornerstone properties, that TID is doing very well and expected to close well in advance of the mandatory closure date. So then I'll move on to Tax Increment District 8. This is the newest of the TIDs. It was created in 2018, and the end of the expenditure period is another 9 years away, 2033, the mandatory closure date of 2038. Now, the base value of this tax increment district was about $640,000. It was all farmland at the time that the TID was created, and there was no supporting infrastructure in place at that time. The incremental value at the end of 2022 was about $180 million, and that does not include some of the more recent buildings that you saw go up in 2023, as well as I think one final site that we're expecting to be where development is expected to start in 2024. So at this point, we're looking at incremental revenues of about $3.5 to $3.7 million per year in cash flow to that tax increment district. And if there are no additional expenditures, the estimated closure would be 2029, which is really quite remarkable for this type of tax increment district, that it would be paid off that quickly.
Where is this one
Yeah,
located?
where's
I'm sorry, that one is north of Holy Hill Road. I apologize. I was good with the first two, but lost a little focus for that third one. It's north of Holy Hill Road, and the boundary is Goldendale Road on the east, Rockfield Road on the north, and Little Cedar Creek on the west. Little Cedar Creek flows basically from Holy Hill up to Rockfield Road and then beyond.
That's where the Briggs building is?
That's where the Briggs Outs Generac is in there now, but yeah, yep. Golden Pet is part of that, Dielectric, MSG, or no, MGS is actually down in TID 7, their expansion, but as well as the buildings on the west side of Gateway Crossing. So, and there is one final vacant space for development there, kind of on the northwest corner. There's one lot that Zilber Development controls, and there have been some conversations. I think it's likely that there would be some development there that starts sometime this year. And before I move on to the next slide, just mention there is a fourth active tax increment district that was not included in this presentation, Tax Increment District 9, which was just created in the past year or so. And that is over by Donjas Bay Road and Wazaki. It's not included in this because we did not have an annual report that was due for it yet. It's very new, but it's related. It was formed to, there was a business park that was formed to share infrastructure costs with the village's new public works facility that's constructed there, to help avoid or reduce the amount of general obligation debt that went directly onto the property tax bills. So there's about $8 or $9 million worth of road improvements to Donjas Bay Road, as well as extension of sewer and water from just a little bit east of here over to Donjas Bay Road. And that infrastructure will serve both the DPW facility as well as the new buildings that you see going up there. F Street Developers is near completion of a 375,000 square foot facility at the top of the hill. There's a concrete facility just to the east of our new DPW building, basically storage and handling of concrete panels for Stonecast, a Germantown company. So then moving on to kind of a summary slide here. So based on the projections that we're seeing in about another 10 years, as TIDS 6, 7, and 8 are closing or approximately closing, that will add about $360 million to the village tax base. That'll have a significant impact on the property tax rate and what property taxpayers in the village are paying at that point. It won't all happen in 1 year, but it should happen in about a 4 or 5 year period. That should be completed in the next 10 to 12 years. Just to show what the impact of that is, that $360 million in property tax base will pay, using today's tax rates, about $5.5 million total to all of the taxing jurisdictions. The village share would be about $1.6 million. The school district share would be about $3 million out of that, with the remainder going to Washington County and MATC. Now, one of the things that the village board is looking at is some infrastructure improvements adjacent to TIDS 7 and 8 that would facilitate some new development there without the creation of new tax increment districts. So then that development would take place outside of the tax increment districts and go directly into the property tax base, benefiting the taxpayers. So an example of that, there's 2 examples right now. Green Bay Packaging, for example, is building their new facility. If you know where the Shell station is out on Holy Hill, right by the interstate, Green Bay Packaging is building their facility just north of that Shell station. It's a 325,000 square foot facility that they're planning, with property value. The state of Wisconsin assesses those, so it's a little bit difficult to predict, but somewhere around $30 million that'll go directly on the tax base when it's completed. And then Truck Country, which is a company that buys, maintains over-the-road semi-trucks, has bought the marine storage facility over on the Holy Hill interchange. They'll be tapping into some of the infrastructure that the village board is looking at expanding, and that would be another $15 to $20 million investment that would go directly onto the tax base without any TIDS being formed. So the trade-off, if there could be another $5 million or so that is invested out of TIDS 7 and 8 into additional infrastructure that could produce another $40 to $50 million in property tax base that would not be part of the TIDS but would go directly into the property tax base and benefit the taxing jurisdictions and the Germantown taxpayers.
Is Truck Country, is that a move or an expansion for them?
It's a move and an expansion. They're moving from a facility that's on Brown Deer Road. They'll be closing.
Brown Deer, right?
Yep. So they'll be moving over, and it's also a significant expansion. They will have about a 15,000 square foot repair facility there, as well as their dealership will be selling trucks, and so I think they're very excited to have that location right on the interstate, and they have a very successful business model, so we're excited to bring them into the village of Germantown.
Is there a border between Germantown and Richfield right in that area?
Interstate 41 is actually
is
the
it
border
right on the
there.
41?
It is.
Because that's a diagonal.
Well, the part where 41 is due north-south, that's the border.
Okay.
And then when it starts to curve over, then there's a little triangle of Germantown there. We go over to Town Line Road. So if you're on Freistadt going west, there's Faith Church.
Yep.
Is in Germantown, and then a couple of houses on the north side of the road and the large farm field that's owned by the Cole family That is Germantown. The road that's just to the west of that farm is Town Line Road, and that's the border. And then it's still Germantown going south over into the trailer park to the south there, and some of the residential neighborhoods.
So at what point would you ask us to have a representative come and vote yes or no on any proposed changes?
At the Joint Review Board process, and I'm reviewing that with Ehlers and with our legal counsel just to see. What I've done so far is present a list of alternatives, of things that where there may be investments to the village board. Once they determine what they think they would like to proceed with, then determine if that requires a change to the project plan or not. And if it does require a change to the project plan, then that will go through the Joint Review Board. I think it's likely that it will require a change to the project plan, and then we'll go through the Joint Review Board process. And I would be happy to come back at that point if this committee or the full school board would like to hear more about those particular investments and how they relate to some of the development there. I'd be happy to give more information as we work along that process a little bit further.
I guess I would like to understand if you take more money out of the TID, that's going to delay its closure. So you are delaying any property owners in the district from benefiting from that TID. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. The projects that we're looking at would delay if the village board approves it and it goes through the Joint Review Board process, would delay the closure of TID 7 from 2033, I think it was, to like 2035 or maybe 2036. And TID 8 would be delayed from 2029 to 2031. So there would be a couple year delay in the closure of those two tax increment districts. Now, the flip side of that is that this other development will take place without any expansion of the TIDs. So that new development will go directly onto the property tax base. So another option would be that the village board and the Joint Review Board could consider would be to create a new tax increment district, TID 10, that paid for those infrastructure investments that were needed for the development. And then TID 7 and 8 would be able to close on schedule, but it would significantly delay then how long it would take for those for TID 10 to close and for that that property to hit the tax base and benefit the taxpayers. And there always is the other option. I try to be clear about this. The village doesn't have to use tax increment districts to fund these infrastructure improvements. It is possible to, for example, for roads, to issue general obligation debt, just as part of our annual capital program. However, then that general obligation debt, the debt service has to be paid out of the property tax levy. And that goes directly onto the tax bills that residents receive each year. So they would see a negative impact if the village board went that way. And the sewer and water utility expansions could be funded through revenue bonds that the sewer and water utility would issue, but obviously that comes out of the water and sewer bills, and it could, depending upon how quickly development occurs, it could result in rate increases for water or sewer utilities.
After an 80% increase recently, I don't think people would be too pleased with that.
I don't think anybody's interested in those rate increases, right? I agree.
Okay, well, go ahead.
So
Russ.
if they take money out of the TIDs, is it an indefinite pushback of the closure date? Or is there a hard date where regardless it has to be closed?
No, well, the hard date that it has to be closed is what's listed in statute, typically 20 years. So, for example, TID 8, the mandatory closure date according to state statute is 2038. And however, the village board has in the past closed the tax increment districts when we're able to close them. So And there's a lot of talk, and there are communities that misuse tax increment districts. So what some communities would do is they would look at that expenditure period as ending in 2033. And they would say, all right, we can continue to spend money out of that tax increment district for another 10 years and issue debt and pay for eligible infrastructure improvements in the area, in the vicinity of that TID, and just basically run it out as long as those communities can. What the Germantown Village Board, the approach that they're taking is to minimize what we're spending out of those tax increment districts and close them as early as possible. So that's why the first question the village board asks me when we're presenting some of these options is how does that affect closure? So in this case, today, if they make those additional infrastructure investments, instead of closing it in 2029, we'll close it in 2031. That's well in advance. I mean, theoretically, legally, the village could still be spending money for another 2 years beyond that. But that's not the approach that the village board has taken, and I don't see them changing that in the future.
Are we talking about this because of the extra development you were talking about adjacent to, or?
Well, a lot of it has to do with, most of it has to do with the development and as we've gone forward to the planning and construction of the Richfield sewer and water connection. So the types of things we're looking at, for example, Rockfield Road, going from Goldendale, and it dead ends close to the freeway. If you've driven that, I hope you had your seatbelt on. It's in very rough shape. But as part of the intergovernmental agreement with Richfield, they're going to be reconstructing that and putting in a water line from Gateway Crossing all the way to the west to the end of the road. It seemed to make sense from a staff perspective. One of the things we felt we should look at is while construction is going on the western half, we should probably look at the eastern half as well, from Goldendale to Gateway Crossing. It was resurfaced, but the base of that road is in rough shape, and it's not a long-term solution. So that's one of the options that we have on that list of alternatives, is while we're reconstructing it from Gateway Crossing West, let's reconstruct it from Goldendale to Gateway Crossing. The second major example in that list is Freistadt Road, which as the water and sewer line from Richfield goes kind of south along the freeway and then crosses over by Holy Hill Storage, then crosses the railroad tracks, ends up coming down to Freistadt Road and going east to connect where sewer and water right now terminate at the intersection of Goldendale and Freistadt. Richfield is going to be paying for water and sewer and repaving Freistadt Road from about halfway between Goldendale and the highway to Goldendale. And again, it was another one, if that's being reconstructed at this time, it may make some sense for the village to also complete from the highway to the point where the sewer and water comes out, to get those projects done at the same time. So that's kind of the reason that we're looking at the timing of this. And then the third is the Truck Country proposal is coming in, and they need access. And right now there's a private easement, but it's in an area where the village has long-term plans to have a private road. And we have a request in for a railroad crossing at that area with the state. So that kind of accelerated the need for that a little bit faster than what we had anticipated originally.
Okay, Todd?
So what I'm hearing is taxpayers at Germantown, if your proposal goes through, need to wait longer to see the benefits of the TID because Germantown decided to sell water to Richfield.
No.
If we didn't sell water to Richfield, would any of this have ever happened?
Rockfield Road would still need to be repaved. It would just be on the resident's property tax bill from the beginning to the end, because that road still needs to be paved. Freistadt Road is, again, if you've driven out there, that road is not as bad as Rockfield, but would need to be repaved at some time in the near future. So that would have had to be completely paid for then out of Germantown property taxes.
Is the redoing the road costing more because of the water being run?
No,
Sure. Michael?
no. Now to, again, with full disclosure and trying to, be 100% transparent. Now, there is, the water and sewer is another option that the village board is looking at. That would, like, for example, on Freistadt Road, one of the options is extending water and sewer to the west from the point where the Richfield project is terminating on Freistadt, over to David J. Frank. But we do have property owners there that have both expressed the desire to get connection to water and sewer. Both David J. Frank and Germantown Mutual Insurance have asked for connection. So, that would be an additional expense if the village board decides to make that. It again it isn't necessarily related to Richfield. It's just a policy decision if the village board would like to extend water and sewer over to those properties. They don't necessarily have to. They could leave it stubbed out, basically where the Richfield project ends.
Okay, I understand you say, well, if we hadn't sold water to Richfield, it still would need to happen, but it seems like it's happening because of, or not at all? I mean, when you answered Mr. Lill's question,
Yeah.
the reason
Yeah.
is because of
The
water.
The timing is certainly a part of it, but, the fact that these projects are getting scheduled, and we're trying to leverage the fact that Richfield is paying for, Richfield is gonna pay for repaving half of Rockfield Road, reconstructing and repaving half of Rockfield Road. And I think what we're trying to do with these projects is take advantage of that fact and leverage that to repave the other half at a lower cost.
I completely understand that. Shouldn't the public have been made aware of this potential extra expense before the vote was made to sell water to Richfield?
Well, it's certainly something I didn't know at the time we were going through the referendum process. Again, I think you can look at it if the glass is half empty or the glass is half full. The other thing that we didn't talk about during that referendum process was the fact that, there would be other savings to Village of Germantown taxpayers for work that we would have had to otherwise pay for that now Richfield is paying for. So
I look forward to those benefits. So I appreciate it. Not
No,
to try to put you on the hot seat,
no,
but
I understand. I know
you're going to
that-
ask our vote to
Yeah,
try to extend this, and that's going to delay any benefit that our taxpayers are going to see.
yeah. I understand, and definitely, and we will have those numbers when we go through that process and be able to present that. And the school board, just like the village board, can weigh that against other options and decide which are the options that you prefer. And as staff, we follow that direction.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just have a quick question about if it comes to the joint review board, did you say TID 7 and 8?
TID 7 and 8, yes.
Not TID 6?
TID 6, no, we're not looking at any of these projects potentially being paid for out of TID 6.
Okay, and then, and I'm sure you'll go through this as the process goes along, but can you explain why 7 and 8 versus 6, and does it have to be both, or it could be one or the other?
It is, well, first of all, the projects, all of these projects are adjacent to either TID 7 or 8. So if we're making these investments, there's a logical connection there for TID 7 and 8 because they're all either within or adjacent or somehow connected to one of those TIDs. But the other state law that's in play is TIDs can pay for infrastructure outside of their boundaries, but depending upon the infrastructure, there are distance limits. So it's like a half a mile for some, a mile for others. So TID 6 is really outside of the distance that would be able to pay for those. As far as the distribution, there could be some look at how those costs are allocated between TID 8 and TID 7. as we've been talking with Ehlers, and they've been helping with how that might be best allocated. It's been looking at minimizing the extension of both of the TIDs. So, for example, in the numbers that they put together, more of the infrastructure costs would be paid for out of TID 8 than TID 7, because TID 8 has a cash flow of $3.7 million a year, where TID 7 has a cash flow of about $1 million a year. So it's able to absorb more without a significant lengthening of the life of the TID.
So TID 8 is estimated to close in 2029. I know that you have a mandatory until 2038, but the other TID is 2033. So, I mean, to extend both of them, maybe you're gonna extend one longer than the other, but, I mean, 2029 is coming quicker than 2033. So I was just wondering if you could more focus on District 7, and will it be 2 different votes, or it will be 1 vote when it comes?
Not sure the procedure on that yet. Yeah.
Would you anticipate that review to be next month, next quarter, next, end of the year?
Planning to have this on the village board agenda for their meeting a week from tonight. And if they decide to move forward with it, then we'll get Ehlers started with that process. There's 30-day notice requirements for those meetings, and it's about a 90-day long process. So just off the top of my head, I would say if we get approval from the village board in February, we'd probably be looking at an approval process that goes March, April, end of May, approximately, maybe bleeding over into June.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Russ?
You explained the TIDs have a mandatory date, and the village is working hard not to meet those. They want to end it sooner. It's probably the right thing to do, but you also floated a potential additional TID being opened. Is there plans for that? And I'll let you answer that first, and then.
Sure. There are no plans in process at this point for any additional TIDs. I will say that there are developers who are coming in all the time and with proposals, with ideas. There are Germantown companies that come forward all the time with, requests. Most of those end up getting resolved, or we find other ways of doing those, addressing their needs without forming tax increment districts. But there is nothing that is in process or that's being planned at this point. No other additional TIDs.
I would find it disingenuous to say we're closing them ahead of schedule while opening an additional TID. If that you're tracking me on that?
I do. I think I think it depends on perspective of tax increment districts, and I can give you an example of the types of conversations that come forward. There, we regularly get approached by Germantown companies that are looking to expand and looking for some sort of assistance to their expansion. If there's a JW Speaker was one of them, and they oftentimes need some additional infrastructure put in place, water and sewer. There are times where, in order to be competitive with other locations, there's one company that I spoke with this summer that was competing with other branches in other parts of the world for an expansion. And, it could happen in Germantown or it could happen in the Netherlands. And, the Netherlands is putting together a proposal, and what can Germantown do? And we work with Economic Development Washington County. We work with Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation to try to put together packages. That was one where it could have resulted in a small TID being formed to try to allow that Germantown company to expand and bring another 100 jobs to the community. So eventually there probably will be a proposal for another tax increment district. I don't know where that would be or when it would be or what it would be for, but it is a tool that the state of Wisconsin set up as a way for communities to try to work with businesses to encourage them to locate or expand within our borders. And it's really the only tool that local governments have for that.
I just have one more question. If for some reason it would not be approved to have 7 and 8 extend to help out the other area,
Right.
7 and 8 would come back onto the tax roll in 2029 and 2033.
That was,
And,
yeah.
and then you could possibly open up another TID to do those areas that you're speaking about, because then that wouldn't change anything until that TID closed, right? Because you're still paying the property taxes on the land that exists today, correct?
Correct. The cost or the downside of opening a new TID is then, like, let's say that there was a new tax increment district that included the truck country and the Green Bay packaging developments. Then that money would not go on the property tax base for another 10 or 15 years. So, again, I think the approach that the village board has been looking at is they want to minimize the use of TIDs. They want to minimize the expansion or the creation of new TIDs. If we are able to leverage some of the cash flow from the existing TIDs to make that work, that would be the approach that they would prefer to take.
Other than it won't come back onto the tax roll, so you push those two out.
Well, so it's kind of, reminds me a little bit of the psychological tests there, where they put an Oreo cookie in front of a kid, and do you want, if you don't eat this Oreo cookie for the next 3 minutes, you can have a second one. And, TIDs are, in some respect, it's the same thing. It's now, the Oreo cookie is the property tax base from these new developments, and it's a matter of preference. It's, would you rather have, $40 to $50 million in right away? And if you do that, if that's what you want, then it means that you have to wait 2 more years for TID 7 and 8 to close. Or you could have TID 7 and 8 close as planned, but then you've got to wait, say, 15 years for that $40 to $50 million in this other development to come onto the property tax base. So there's really no right or wrong answer to that. It's really just a preference of the governing bodies.
You get the Oreo cookies from 7 and 8 though, right away.
Well, that's a lot of Oreo cookies.
All right, thank you.
Oh, thanks. Now I'm hungry.
Okay, well, we always appreciate TIDs closing early.
All right.
If you can do it.
All right.
That was my closure
Oh, that
anyway.
was good.
Well said.
Thanks for your time tonight.
Well, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
And I will say, one of the reasons they do so well is because of the Germantown School District. And employers want to locate here because there's a great workforce that came through the Germantown schools. And people want to live here because they want their kids to be able to go to the schools here. So, you all do a great job, and staff and the elected officials here. It's a team that makes it all happen. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks for
Thank you.
coming. All right. We are on to item 6B, January variance report. Brittany Altendorf, please.
I will give a brief update on the January variance report. As the committee knows, this is a report that is given monthly regarding our 2 largest funds, which is our general fund and our special education fund. You can see within the summary that I have some notes from the previous variance reports, just so you are aware, those aren't going to go away. They're just reoccurring on why revenue's higher and expenditures are higher. So I'm just going to continue to keep those notes on the bottom, but I don't need to reference them. As of this report, we have spent about $22.5 million this year compared to $21.9 million in the previous year. That's about $663,000 spent more this time than it is the previous time this year. Those mainly are due to salaries and benefits increasing compared to the previous year of about $600,000. So that's the majority of the increase. Revenue compared to last year at this time, as my notes say below from previous months, this time last year we received about $24.5 million, and this year it is about $23.9 million. And again, those are due to some ESSER funds that we received, some grants that we received that we are holding in fund balance for planned purposes, but we received those last year and we are obviously not receiving them this year. One of the other areas you'll see, which is new on this report, is that we received in January our property tax bills, so our first property tax bills we've received, revenue, we didn't receive the bills, property tax revenue we received, and we have received $1.2 million less this January than we did last January. Municipalities get to pay the district as well as the other revenue, they stated it earlier, MATC in Washington County, at the rate that they can pay. So if people are not paying their property taxes to the municipalities at a higher rate, they are then turning over their revenue at a lower rate. So that's why we are receiving $1.2 million. We believe they get to do what they want with the money. At the end in August, we have to make sure the whole dollar amount is paid. So we don't have, I guess, a say in how we receive or what type of payments we receive over the year. And then I did want to note in here that we did pay off our short-term borrower, our line of credit that the board approved in October. Just to reference, we did on November 13th of 2023 have the ability to borrow $3.8 million. We did borrow 1.5 of that $3.8 million. We were expecting some higher expenses to come through that didn't come through for health insurance and some other areas. So we repaid that 2 days earlier than we expected to pay it back at. And we budgeted, or we estimated the interest to be $50 million, and we were
No.
well, that was a high interest, $50,000, and we did pay a total interest of $20,276.45.
It was
That would have been
collective,
a little
it was
bit
collective
over.
whiplash there, just so you know. Everyone, I think,
apologize
looked
for
up
that.
instantaneously.
The numbers just come off in millions, I'm sorry. So we did pay less in interest than we were expecting, and when I presented it to the board, we were planning on paying less interest than our previous borrow. We are still planning on not having to borrow in June. Previous years, we did borrow 2 times a year. It is our goal to not borrow in June. As you know, we are spending some of our fund balance, depending on what the reading bill, what happens with the reading bill, we might be using some of our fund balance for the reading curriculum. So that would bring the fund balance down, which would then bring our bank accounts down, which then might have to borrow, but our goal right now is not to borrow in June and then come back to you in fall to borrow again.
Do you think you'll pull that off with the 1.2 million less?
Well, we're hoping that our next payments will be a little higher than they were in the previous. We don't know if taxpayers are just not paying in the December time, if they're planning on paying throughout the year, because you can pay one lump sum or you can pay as the year goes on. So.
Okay,
But we'll take that into consideration in June.
right, very good.
Record high
Questions?
credit card debt,
What?
record high credit card
Oh,
debt, so
there you go.
people are paying that down first.
That makes sense.
Okay. Item 7, we do not have any unfinished business. Item 8A, 2023-2024 budget adjustments. Brittany Oltendorf, please.
Every year around this time, I come to the Finance Committee and then the full board. In July, you did approve a preliminary budget, and then it came to the annual meeting in October. In the January-ish time of the year, we do get amounts, final amounts for grants. We do plan our ESSER funding, but different things come up, so we want to adjust our budget. So some of the items that we had in here were not in the original budget that was brought to the board, and now we're adding it. Some of the items are amounts that we knew, but we didn't know the final amount, so we didn't want to just put an estimate into the budget. I did want to let the committee know that I will be coming back in March for another budget adjustment because there are some final numbers that we do not know for our federal and state grants. So I didn't want to wait on everything. So I am going to bring these now and then I will bring another adjustment in March. But some of the items that you see in here, we did not know of, and now we do, that we received $50,000 for the Kennedy Middle School incident. It was in insurance. It's just an insurance that we receive. It's not an insurance that will affect us in the future for having the incident that we had. We weren't even aware of the insurance policy that we received these funds for. So we are using these funds. Some of the items that we are using these funds for are the go bags that you saw in the vouchers. We are finishing up or have finished up the night locks at all our elementaries, middle school and high school. They are complete throughout the whole district. We are now starting to look at the window coverings, where the window covering would come down and it would attach magnet, I believe, magnet to the windows. So we are going to start going through the district and measuring for all those. So that will come out of this fund. And then one other area of, is it an air compressor on the roof of Kennedy Middle School needs some, or is it an air conditioning unit?
Yeah, it's a rooftop.
A rooftop air conditioning unit needs some areas of it fixed. So we are using these funds for that as well, which I believe is about $13,000. So we will have that done before summer. One of the other areas is common school money, that is other known as library aid. We do get an allocation at the beginning of the year, and this is another one that if some school districts do not spend last year's money, it is then distributed over the next year. So this is the increase that we have received over what we budgeted at the beginning of the year. Mental health grant, we knew that we were going to receive the mental health grant. We didn't know how much we were going to receive those. So this is one we were aware of, but we didn't want to put the dollar amount in. So you see that we are expecting a revenue of $120,736. We expect to receive that in June. And we currently do not know what the expenses are planned for, so we don't have an expense built into the budget. So once we receive the dollars, or a little bit prior, we will start planning with the board on what we could potentially use those dollars for in 24, 25, or forward, depending on the guidelines of the grant. And then the final one, we received, or we applied for a school health services workforce development grant through CISA 1. I believe, were offered it the previous year. We did not accept it, I believe, the previous year. We didn't follow through with the paperwork. We then decided that we wanted to receive this grant, so we finished the paperwork for it. We did receive the grant. Our expected revenue is $29,160.46. We do not have expenses in the budget yet for it, but we will work with our school nurse and our pupil services department to make sure those dollars are spent in the areas that are qualified within the grant. So in front of you today, we see a net expense increase of $119,119 and a revenue increase of $267,981.46.
That's a good ratio.
That is.
Okay. And, I don't know, did you cover the second page there? Yeah, at least that's how it printed out for me.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's just telling you that in March that I will be coming back
Okay.
with more adjustments.
Okay.
Sorry.
You covered that.
Mhm.
All right, I will take a motion.
Motion to bring forward to the Board of Education with a positive recommendation to approve the 2023-2024 budget adjustments.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Tom Barney, second by Eric Brown. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. All right, next item on new business is the 2024-2025 facility use fee schedule. And that's Brittany Altendorf, please.
Annually, I come to the Finance Committee and the Board again around this time to get approval for next year's facility use fee schedule. If you remember last year, we made a significant amount of changes to our fee schedule as we did a comparison with other surrounding school districts on where we were at versus where their other rentals were, and as well as our return on investment on our rentals. This year, we are not asking for any changes. We believe the changes last year sufficed for what we needed them to do, but we do still have to approve the schedule for next year. We do it during this time, just so Park and Rec is aware, so they are able to plan their catalogs in the future, because we don't want to set an increase after they've already planned their programs.
I'm sure they will be excited to hear that there's no changes being recommended.
I agree. Okay, I will take a motion.
I'll bring forward to the Board of Education with positive recommendation to approve the 2024 and 2025 facility use fee schedule.
Second.
Okay, motion by Eric Brown, second by Tom Barney. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. And next, under a new business, item 8C, 2024-2025 student fee schedule. And Brittany Altendorf, please.
In front of you today is the recommendation for the 2024-2025 student fee schedule. Attached is the current fee schedule with the recommended changes. I will start from the top and work my way down on the suggested changes. The first one is adding a 6th and 8th grade science fee of $4. 7th grade has had a science fee since 2016-17, and 6th grade and 7th grade are asking to have the same similar $4 fee. I did list in here what they will be using those for. They are items that are currently purchased, but they would like to add a fee onto that of $4. They also said it is used for a lot of the labs that they use and the items they use to be able to have the labs with the students. So that's the first one that I'm asking to add, is the 6th grade and 8th grade. So you can see on the fee schedule, it's just verbiage changing on the left that says science. It used to just say 7th grade. It's now going to say 6th through 8th grade. The next one I am recommending is adjusting. So accounting 1 and advanced accounting at the high school is currently $35. They are asking if it could be increased to $45, and they are asking it because of the cost of the workbook has increased. So the cost of the workbook has increased, their budget then would increase. So they're asking for that $5 increase for both of those.
It sounded like you said to 45, but
No.
it's from 35 to 40.
35 to 40, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm
thank you.
sorry if I said that wrong. And then the next one is regarding our technology fee. You may be aware that we started a technology or a Chromebook fee in 2021-22 at $30. We've increased it by $5 each year, and then we are asking for it to be $45 this year. So the 2021-22 freshmen were the first students to start paying this fee, and then now they will be, if you graduate at the end of 25, you will be the first class that has the ability to, with a small fee, it's going to be $75, take that Chromebook with you. If you choose not to, you just don't pay the additional $75, but you don't get the Chromebook fee back. I do have one that I would like to recommend as an addition. I did get notified late after my packet was submitted regarding lifeguarding. Lifeguarding is currently at a $90 fee. They're requesting it to be a $97 fee because that is how much they pay.
Red Cross.
Red Cross, thank you very much. Red Cross for the program. So I told them that if the board or the committee does not approve it, we'll keep it at 90, but I would ask tonight if we could increase it to 97.
Okay, 90 to 97, do we need to add that to the motion, or?
I would-
mean, really, the numbers, the specifics are not in the motion.
I would add it to the end of the motion that it's approved with positive recommendation of the
Okay.
24-20 with the addition of adjusting lifeguarding from 90 to set 97, and then I'd bring it to the full board with that change in there, if that's
Okay.
okay.
I think it's okay.
Yep.
I was looking this over, particularly the science. I think I want to return to middle school just to take the science classes.
They look fun.
All right, I will take a motion.
Motion to bring forward to the Board of Education with a positive recommendation to approve the 2024-2025 student fee schedule as presented, with the addition of increasing lifeguarding from $90 to $97.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Tom Barney, second by Eric Brown. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. And then we've got, item 8D, monthly purchase requests exceeding $15,000 and purchasing project bid results. This is, number 1, JV softball and baseball field work. Frank Lord, please.
Yes, so working, or through collaboration with the athletics and activities department, we have prioritized the need to revamp the junior varsity softball field and junior varsity baseball field. There are several reasons for this, in partial because it is part of the 2023-2024 capital project list as part of the CIP, as well as the need to remove several lips within the infields and around the field edges that are causing safety concerns, as well as drainage issues, loose or broken bases and plates, and just inconsistent base paths in general. This is a project definitely in need of as part of the ongoing maintenance of athletic fields when it comes to baseball and softball fields, with full intention on proper maintenance moving forward. We won't have to revisit this for a while.
Okay, very good. I think we were all here for the building committee also, so I think we've covered it. I will take a motion or accept a motion.
I'll make the motion to move forward with a positive recommendation to the full board to approve the JV baseball and the softball field using Midwest Athletic Fields LLC in the amount not to exceed $29,440. Funding using Fund 41.
Second.
Okay, motion by Eric Brown, second by Tom Barney. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Item 9, I will accept one more motion.
Move we adjourn.
Dramatic pause.
Eric wants to stay for a while.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion to adjourn by Tom Barney, second by Eric Brown. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. We are adjourned at 6:17.